defining, we mean we make it from general research problem to specific research problem. That means we move from research area to research topic. Okay? Actually, that was the first step in research. In lecture 1, we have research steps. The first step was how to find the problem and how to refine it. Okay? And also in last lecture, we also discussed about literature review. And we said how to do critical literature review. And we discussed what we mean by critical literature review. It's not just reporting studies in the literature. We should understand, analyze, find the drawbacks, find the advantages of the previous studies, and then do the critical literature review. The next step, when we read the literature, we have already a problem, we have a research topic, so we did also some literature review. We move to the next step, which is the title of our lecture today, which is the theoretical framework and hypothesis development. How to come out with framework and how to design or develop our hypothesis. If you remember from the first lecture, we have talked about the hypothesis, and we said our research should have some variables. Okay? So from those variables, we should find the relationship between the variables to develop the hypothesis. Okay? And after that, we have different type of hypothesis. We have the null hypothesis, we have the alternate hypothesis, and later on we will discuss, we will explain what we mean by null hypothesis and alternate hypothesis. Before that, we study what we mean by theoretical framework and what we mean by hypothesis development, and we should also understand what are the types of variables, because after that, the relationship between variables will form our hypothesis. Relationship between research variables. What do we mean by variables or research variables? You have an idea? Anybody have an idea about what do we mean by research variable? No? Okay, we will see later. So, when we are developing our theoretical framework, that means that we are doing a deductive research project. For this type of research project, which are deductive, we should develop our theoretical framework. Do you mean why? What we mean by deductive? If you can remember also from the last lecture, or maybe the first lecture, we have different types of research. One of these types is deductive. Deductive means to deduct or to conclude something from the research. Maybe you have not studied the previous ones. we have inductive research, and we have deductive. I know you understand it in Arabic. You should understand also in English. Okay, I'll show you. Deduction and induction. Deductive reasoning is the application of theory to specific case. This is what we mean by hypothesis testing. So the theoretical framework and the hypothesis development is specifically for deductive research. Okay, what we mean by deductive means we apply theory or general theory to a specific case. We have a problem, we have a case, maybe in our organization. So we apply some kind of theories to that specific case to detect, to conclude something, okay, to get something. We apply the theory on the case and then we deduct or conclude. Deduct also means conclude. You know what's conclude? It's from conclusion. You know what's in conclusion, right? So this is what we mean by deductive. We apply theory to a specific case. And this is what we mean by hypothesis testing. Go back to our lecture. So, theoretical framework is specifically for deductive research. It's not for inductive. Okay. Deductive research, what we mean by deductive research, it means we move from the general, which is a theory, to the specific, which is the observations. Observation means that we observe. Okay? We observe from, for example, from our organization that something happened. That, for example, employees are switching from our organization to another organization. This is observation. We observe. We can see, okay? We can sense that those people or those employees are moving from our organization to another organization. This is what we mean by observations, okay? So deductive research, to move from the theory, so we should look at the theory behind that switching. Why those employees are switching from our organization to another organization. So we should look for the reasons. What are the reasons that make them move from our organization to another organization? And then, at the end of our research, we should deduct or we should conclude something. We should conclude that something happened in our organization that make them move from our organization or switch from our organization to another organization. So we come up with a theory. By the end, we come up with a theory, maybe something. We can conclude something. This is what we mean by deductive research. It is moving from a general theory to the specific observation, to apply the theory on some specific observations. So, the theoretical framework represents your beliefs on how certain phenomena or variables or concepts are related to each other. So you are forming a model. Of course, maybe you heard about this word, model. Have you heard about this word before? Model. How to model problem. You have a problem. How to model this problem means how to express this problem in terms of modeling. We can construct a model that describes the problem. Means we need to represent our beliefs on how certain phenomena or variables, what are the variables of our research problem, how these variables are related to each other to form a model, and an explanation on why you believe that these variables are associated to each other, which is the theory. So we have a model. Model is a set of variables related to each other This is what we mean by model. Can have an example. Just a very simple example. If we have two variables, x and y, x and y are input to our model, then we can have the value of z, for example, equals to x times y, and then after that h is z times x. So in our model, for example, maybe x and y and z and h means something in the reality or in our organization. But this is just an example. So the variables of our problem are x and y and z and h. So these are the variables. The relationship between the variables, how they relate to each other, they are related to each other in this way. Z equal to x times y. H is equal to z times x. So these are the relations. Okay? relations forms the observations, which is our model. But why this relationship? Yz is equal x times y, and yh is z times x. Why? This is what we mean by the theory. Why the relationship is like this? Why not the relationship is like this, for example? X plus y or x minus y. Z plus x or z divided by x. So the answer for why question is the theory. We should have a theory. We should have some thing in our mind to choose the type of, for example, the type of operation between the variables, the type of relation between variables. But the relations itself constitute the observations. This is what we observe from the reality or from the situation in our organization. This is just a very simple and conceptual example about the theoretical framework. So in our research, if we choose our topic, then we should determine what are our variables. After that, when we determine our variables, we should find the relations between our variables. The relations between our variables constitute the model. So this is how they relate to each other, means the model. So the relationship between the variables are the model, and the explanation on why you believe that these variables are associated with each other. This is what we mean by theory, and therefore all these things we call it the theoretical framework. So the basic steps, what are the steps to design our theoretical framework? The first step is identify and label the variables correctly. We should find the variables of our research problem correctly, okay? After that, we state the relationships among the variables in order to formulate the hypothesis. And after that, the third step is explain how or why we expect these relationships. For example, when we say our example, we say how or why we choose to be multiplication x times y. Why not x plus y? Why not x minus y? Why not x divided by y? This is why we expect the relationship. So this is 3 steps to form our theoretical framework. First step is identify the variables. What are the variables in our model or in our problem? And after that, we state the relationships, how these variables relate to each other in order to formulate the hypothesis. And the third step is explain why we expect these relationships. Why not other types of relationships? Okay? Anyone have a question?
Doctor, these 3 steps for basic steps from framework.
For building the theoretical framework, yes.
This half shape. This half shape, in a shape or specific shape.
Shape.
Yes.
There is no specific shape. I mean, it's based on your problem. Your problem is different from other people, different. But first, you have to find your variables, and the variables are different from problem to another problem. They are not the same in all problems. So the theoretical framework will be different from research to research, and problem to problem. Okay? We will see what we mean by variable and what are the types of variables, because the first step is identify the variables. So we should know what are the variables. What do we mean by variable? Okay? What are the types of variables? So the variable is any concept or construct that varies or changes or change